Good evening, friends. Thanks for joining Catalina every evening to follow what's happening in India and abroad. And thank you for sending me your useful comments and suggestions. If you believe in this channel, do hit the like button, share with friends, and spread the message. Our only mission is to bring you the truth and both sides of the story. Thank you for your support. We're joined by Kieran Narayan, lawyer at Karnataka High Court, and we will later be joined by Niddhi Kukreja, mother of the late Janvi Kukreja. So welcome, Kieran.
Thanks, Meena. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So there's a lot to discuss, Kieran. Just today, as you would note, I'm sure you would have watched the news. You would have heard that in today's breaking news, NCB Delhi has seized 50 kilos of high-quality heroin, 47 kilos of suspected narcotics, 30 lakhs of drug money in cash, and other incriminating material from Shaheen Bagh. And the contraband was stored in travel bags, backpacks, and jute sacks. So the first, the news was given to the NCB by the Gujarat police. They were the ones who alerted. And the seized heroin originated from Afghanistan, and the drug money was suspected to be channeled through Hawala. The seized heroin was packed in the packaging of Flipkart, and one Indian national has been charged in the case. These syndicates have been smuggling goods to India through maritime as well as land border routes, wherein heroin was smuggled in alongside various legitimate goods. Heroin was later extracted from those goods by the Indian counterparts with the help of some Afghan nationals. Several raids by NCB were conducted and are still going on to bust the entire network. The syndicate was found to be connected with drug traffickers of the entire North region, including states of Punjab, Haryana, UP, Uttarakhand, and Delhi. The they have linkages to many countries like Dubai, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and many states in the north of India. See, the drug menace has many, as you see, Kieran, the drug menace has many repercussions. Those fighting it in uniform as narcotic officers are being targeted by the drug mafia, and those innocently caught in the narco web unknowingly, which is our youth, and other people who are trapped by their peers outside colleges, institutes, schools, gyms, and parties, also suffer. And there's absolutely no protection for these people. So this is the topic that we're discussing today. And I've also invited Niddhi Kukreja because her daughter was a victim of one of these drug outrages at a party. So, you would know, Kieran, you've been following what happened to, one of our best officers, NCP, that's Samir Wankade. The kind of hounding he had to undergo, his whole family, everyone was maligned just to make sure that this menace, that they considered him a menace, to be pushed out of NCP and to save their own skin. So there were big people involved, Bollywood and politicians, corrupt politicians of Mahavikas Aghadi. All of them did their best to push him out, and then he was, was sent to the Directorate of Revenue Intelligence. So this, you will notice, Kiran, that he was almost near the end of his, investigation, and he knew where the drug trail was coming from and who are the people involved. And it was at this last leg that they, decided to get rid of him, and rid of him in the sense that he was transferred. And there were other people also conniving, to get this done. So after this, Kiran, there was another case, a terrible case in Punjab in 2019. So I just wait for Kiran to join here. Yeah, I think there was a small glitch.
Yeah.
So after this, Kiran, there was a terrible case of a young, officer, narco officer, an inspector, who was shot point blank, in Punjab, by a person whose license, his license, chemist license, she had cancelled because they were selling drugs, disguised as medicine. And the same man killed her because they were going to have a court hearing after, I think, a year or so. And she was killed in front of her 6-year-old niece, and she died immediately. And this man, when he was going out, he was hounded by people, and he shot himself. So he dead. He died when he was on the way. Now, one thing, Kiran, see, she was one of the most brilliant students who was studying, specializing in anti-cancer drug delivery system. So you can imagine all these people, Samir Wankare and people like her, are all brilliant officers who have, learned so much and contributed so much to their, jobs. And it's these people who are being, sort of eliminated, and done without any sort of, shame or anything. Because see, if there is some reason for it, as in the case of Samir, nothing, they could not find anything against him. And recently, one more case I wanted to speak about was also a case in Delhi where 4 policemen in Delhi, including an inspector, were injured recently after a mob comprising of nearly 60 people, led by a wanted narcotics drug supplier, resorted to stone pelting and firing bullets at the police party from outer North District that had gone to West Delhi's Inderpuri to arrest the drug dealer. The police team responded to the violence and opened fire at the mob, injuring 2 alleged attackers, including a relative of the drug peddler, senior police officer said. Now here, see, this pattern is very, I think Niddhi is also joined us. Let me just add. Welcome, Niddhi.
Good evening.
Yeah. Kieran
Hi,
is
Niddhi.
joined
Good
us.
evening.
Good evening,
How are
sir.
you?
How are you?
Very well, very well. How are you, Niddhi?
I'm
Niddhi,
good.
can you have a little bit more light on your in the room if you can, if it's possible? Otherwise, it's
Yes,
okay.
yes, surely. Just hold on.
Yeah. So Kiran, so here again, what we're talking about is several times Samir Wankade has been attacked in the same manner. When he used to go for these raids, they would come in mobs, and attack them, and they would have all kinds of weapon, and these people would only have some pistols or something, and this is how they face them, and they try to protect our people. So look at the kind of injustice that is meted out to them. Niddhi, I just go, lead you through what I discussed with Kiran, just in a
Yes,
brief
sure.
manner.
Yes.
So we feel that there's this drug nexus, has its claws, in all of society. But what is most scary is that, see, the officers who are protecting us and finding out, investigating these drug, people, and also raiding them are now under attack. There was a brilliant officer in Punjab who was killed point blank in her office in front of her niece. And she was a very specialized officer who was not scared of anyone. In fact, her father was in the army and was scared for her, and often used to accompany her to her, when she used to go on her raids. But he realized that this job is a very scary one. And this has happened to Samir Wankade also, who was pushed out of the position that he was, into an insignificant post to make sure that he doesn't catch the actual culprits. Because he was almost reaching the end of his, investigation in the nexus between the Bollywood and the underworld. And also recently in Delhi, a lot of these narco officers were attacked by mobs, with weapons. So this is actually, we're looking at the officers, but also side by side, young youth, especially the youth in India, they are absolutely, they do not have any idea about how much the drug nexus has, sort of spread. And they go to parties or they, buy things outside the college, which may be laced with drugs. And they also become victims of this nexus. And friends, I'd like to tell you, Niddhi, who's here, as you remember, her daughter was a victim of one of these kind of parties where she had absolutely no idea what it was all about. And she died on that night, on New Year's Eve. And I think maybe it's a year since it's happened,
Year and a half.
year and a half. And absolutely things are not moving, and the family is still grieving. So first, I'll just ask Kiran. So if our people are not protected, Kiran, but if you're looking at the forces, or you're looking at common man, see, what hope do parents have, or what hope do these people have? Why should they fight a system where every time they're vulnerable to such attacks?
Thanks, Meena. Yeah, I mean, that's a good, extensive, elaborate background that you've kind of put forth. Now, what I'd wish to say is, when you look at narcotics in particular, this is something that has, in the last 10 years, the volume of narcotics that's come into our metros has significantly increased. If I take this back to even when I was in college and maybe before, you would hear about these things, but the volume of drugs coming into India was not as much. Even if we talk about private parties that we went to back then, the incidence of drugs or drug consumption or peddling of drugs was, I believe, largely contained in very small groups. And I think the problem was manageable. I think what's happened in the last 10 to 15 years, maybe a little more, is the volume of drugs coming into the country. Obviously, with the vibrant middle class in India and constantly always going up, the buying power of young children being able to afford these drugs has increased. And it's become a market. It's a market where people can quite easily make very good money in a short period of time. And so, if you're talking about large syndicates that push these kind of drugs into a country like India, they had other countries to prefer maybe 15, 20 years ago, but they see the affluence of India over time and find that India is a lucrative market in order to be able to bring this into the country. And that being the case, I mean, we could go on about the various sources of such illicit drugs, but we've also seen the middle class, in some form, lap this whole product, if you want to call it that. Earlier we would talk about marijuana, maybe traces of cocaine and heroin and such, but now you talk about synthetic drugs and MDMA tablets and many other forms of illicit drugs that have made their way into the country. And obviously there is a market for it, where there is consumption patterns that have evolved and evolved very well. And once affordability has gone up, obviously international drug lords and international cartels that actually push these things into India now, who are otherwise focused on, countries in Asia. You were looking at maybe less policed countries such as Malaysia, maybe Indonesia to an extent, Singapore less so, but they were scattered across the region. Now, India tends to have become a region in itself. What started off with Pakistan trying to move drugs into India through the Punjab border and such over 10 to 15 years has now become a bit more of an organized syndicate
Yes.
with possibly tentacles all over the globe. And this is not something that you have common criminals running anymore. These are organized cartels, and it requires a certain level of sophistication even when it comes to policing. You know, um, we talk about the instances, the examples that you just provided, insofar as this officer in Punjab is concerned, or for that matter, Samir Wankade, who went after Bollywood. We've always heard for a very long time that Bollywood has indulged in all of this. Of course, when you say this in a blanket sense, you always have people within Bollywood who come out and defend themselves and say that they're being victimized, and the industry shouldn't suffer a bad name and such. But there is an unholy alliance between the peddlers of these drugs, the parties that go on in various metros, and now we've gotten to a stage where even the smaller parties, we're no longer talking about the large parties or the extremely elite circles with deep monies affording these drugs. We've also had people coming into smaller parties
Yes.
and infiltrating maybe impressionable young people at the age of 18, 20
Yes.
into serious drugs, leading to addiction and then the problems thereof. So I don't believe there are any. I mean, at the outset, I wish to say this, Meena, as well. So, Nidhi, And I'm fully aware of, we've been having this conversation with Nidhi, where under very unfortunate circumstances, she lost her daughter. But the periphery of where she was at was also a venue where a lot of drugs were supposedly consumed. And
Yes.
we're in a situation, I mean, just digressing a little bit, we're in a situation where Nidhi is looking for witnesses to come forward to talk about what actually
Yeah.
happened that night. But because of such illicit activities that were prevailing in that party, there's a hesitancy for many people to come out and speak about a murder that happened under very murky
Yes.
surrounds. So it's very unfortunate. I mean, so moving onto the larger issue of drugs, I mean, people like Samir Wankade, we also, I think, partly the media kind of highlighted what Samir Wankade was doing, and rightly so. I think the
Yeah.
Fourth Estate plays a very important role in bringing real news to the people, and they did so with Samir Wankade, and he became extremely popular. I think in a country like India, sometimes it could also be, not a palatable thing, not an ideal thing. It's better to work under the radar, do a lot of good work that he was doing. But Samir Wakade actually came into the focus for no fault of his. It's not as if he was
Yes.
seeking any attention, but because of the kind of people that he was going after, there was a lot of news that started to come out, and eventually, he found out that the inroads to some of these things led to very, very powerful people.
Yes.
Now, these powerful people who we look at as powerful people within the country could very well be pawns in the larger game.
Yeah.
If you're talking about whether it's the Dubai connection or whether it's Afghanistan. In fact, there was a report very recently where the warlords that are running Afghanistan right now were one time, poppy cultivators,
Yes.
right? And they have actually given a declaration to people saying that they are not going to be getting into this business anymore, which has tightened the supply. And when it's tightened the supply,
In
the
fact,
prices have gone
Kiran,
up.
I'll
Yeah,
intercept you here. In fact,
sure.
exactly what you said. See, now they have so much of excess of cocaine there that they have to ship it, and they have selected countries like India to ship it to. And of
Yeah,
course, within India, we have a lot of traitors, and
yeah,
Shaheen Bagh is a boiling pot, of
yeah.
traitors who want to destroy the country, and that's why it's being sent there.
Yeah, and Meena, I think it's also important if we're going to look at addressing this problem. Going after people down the value chain is never going to help. I
Yes.
mean, we saw what happened when the Mexican cartels and the Colombian cartels were extremely active in a first world country like America, who struggled for a very long time in trying to address those cartels. You know that some of it is state sponsored as well. But coming back to something that's closer to home, which is in India's case, we find that Afghanistan, where these warlords are now in control of the country, also need money to run their country. They're actually, at the end of the day, not an organized nation, but a bunch of mercenaries who've gone about running that country for a very long time. And if you're looking at financing their existence, their weapons, their livelihood, and all of that, they don't really have industry to support that with, whether it's manufacturing or services or anything else. They're only going to be able to do it with drug money because they don't have skilled labor. They don't. So and that's where the world was getting to with Afghanistan, where they wanted to bring in some kind of order, but they failed.
Yeah.
Once the exit of the US happened, they've left a lot of things in the lurch, and Afghanistan has gone right back to where it was, which is into drug infiltration into countries like India. Now, if you're going to push it into Pakistan, Pakistan's buying power has been reducing for a period of time. So the only logical place that it's likely to come into is India,
Yeah.
because we have a growing middle class, as I said earlier. We have affordability, and we can buy these things. And today, as much as our prime minister goes out and speaks about you know uh, a huge population between the 25s and 35s, or between the 15s and 25s, they are direct targets of these drugs coming into the country. And so I think, you know given
Also,
that this
here,
is, yeah,
here, Kiran, see, one more thing I'd like to point out to the viewers is that this is a proxy war where they want to destroy our country by using our youth, and making them addicted to this. And if you're not addicted, you spread the message and you target the innocent people. So what's happening is, in the process, you're you're actually, tearing a country apart, because the youth form the backbone of a country.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with
But
you. I agree
also
with
I
you.
would like to say that,
Yes, Nidhi.
all that we are discussing, we don't have anybody monitoring all these things. No, these things are happening, and it's going now. Like how Kiran sir said that, even when we were in college days, these things used to happen, but day by day it's increasing.
Yes.
So why is it increasing?
Yeah.
Because nobody is monitoring things. Law is, I don't know, going where, and the children are getting more access to these things. So that's why
So
it's
Nidhi,
just
just
going, from here to here it's going, and I don't know where it's going to go.
so Nidhi, to respond to that, like I said earlier, the volume of drugs coming into the country, the channels being used by peddlers now is getting more and more sophisticated. And our policing needs to come up to terms with it. Now, Mrs. Meena, she actually talked about the likes of Wankade and the lady who passed away in Punjab. I think Mrs. Shori, if I'm not wrong.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And they are. She was an FDA, food
Yes.
and she was actually into the
It's by
pharmaceutical
dogs.
industry. Yeah, she
Yes.
was into the pharmaceutical industry. And if you look at what she tried to arrest, it was not any of what we're talking about, which is the illicit drugs. She was talking
Absolutely.
about the distribution of
Medicines.
addictive medicines
Pharmacy,
through pharmacies
pharmacies, yes.
and and she obviously went about, we're talking about a retail outlet where you and I would go and buy a Disprin or a Dolo 650 for our needs, and imagine those kind of pharmacies actually peddling addictive drugs. So the proportion of the problem has just kind of compounded in ways that we would never have imagined, because
Yeah.
our typical understanding of a drug peddler was somebody who would walk into a party, who'd be in a shady corner with a few packets in in his trousers, and he would pass it on for a few $1,000. That was our image of a traditional peddler. Today, you're talking about an organized syndicate who sees quick turnaround of money. Even people who hold on to a lot of cash can buy drugs today and bring them into the system. And unfortunately, the police, um, as much as they're doing, are overwhelmed and corrupt in equal measure, right? And so people like Samir Wankade and a few others stand out when they do a good job, and it becomes easy for them to be identified, as a threat to the kind of business that goes on. And obviously he went after very, very big people, um, in a quick period of time, which obviously was not going to be acceptable to the powers that be. I can tell you this with some certainty. We see a lot of criminals being hoarded into courts and so on and so forth as a part of what I do on a regular basis. Um, you know, the NDPS, which is the Narcotics Act, the number of arrests that happen within that act has gone up significantly. There's obviously a drive which the Ministry of Home Affairs has been pushing through, but it's not enough.
Yeah.
It's not enough because, like I said earlier, the volumes have gone up. It's no longer targeted at a very small pocket within society. There is an effort to hammer it out across society. Punjab was a recipient of that over the last 15, 20 years, where, if reports are to be believed, 65 to 70% of youth under 35 have become addicted to some form of substance or the other. We're not even talking about alcohol here. So, and once a market gets saturated, you're talking about the flow of drugs into neighboring states, right? Where you have youth in equal measure. So these are challenges that exist. Now, we know that drone technology is being used to try and take care of the mules that bring some of the drugs into the country through the porous borders that we have
Yes.
across, our northern borders in the northeast and so on. But you also have to remember that there are states that turn a blind eye, knowing fully well that drugs are actually moving into India.
Yes.
And this is a larger problem. If you have state, I wouldn't say it's state sponsored, but states in our neighborhood turn a blind eye because it's revenue to people who are actually in seats of power. So it's
That
no
is
longer
exactly
Nidhi.
what I was saying. There's nobody to monitor all these things, no,
The
and we are
battle
not
just got
seeing
more
that the action is, yeah,
the
we are not
battle just got
sweeping up enough.
extremely more complex. If you went after small peddlers, that was an easier job. Where we're at right now, and I'm not saying that we shouldn't do much about it. Obviously, there has to be a comprehensive plan, and I'm sure uh, there are people looking at this, and I'm sure that there are
So there's a
smart people who know
comment.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because
There's
big
a comment,
nexus, yeah,
Nidhi.
because big
There's a
nexus have
comment.
big connections,
Yeah.
and they
There's
know
a
when they're
comment that
connected well.
from a person saying parents need to spend time together as a family. They need to make sure they're involved 100% in their kids' life. Now, here I'd like to tell you that Nidhi and her husband and her children were a very close knit family until this happened to Janvi. So they are just like a typical middle class family who share things and do things together. And this is not one of the reasons why this happens. In fact, Nidhi is a mother who's been monitoring this case ever since she died so meticulously. I mean, she's being hounded by threatening calls. People are not cooperating. Friends who were, people who were friends with her before Janvi died have all turned face, and they don't even say hello to her. So there are lots of things happening in Nidhi's life, and yet Nidhi is fighting. So please do not think that this family was not united. They were very united. It's not that. See, when the forces are corrupt right from the police, goes to the politicians, and then when you go to the courts, as Gogoi said, there are forces there as well. Now, as of now, what I hear from Nidhi is that, see, the accused is now being shielded by none other than Satish Manishinde. And Satish Manishinde, we all know, he was Salman Khan's lawyer, and then he was Riya Chakravarti's lawyer, and then recently he was also Aryan Khan's lawyer. So we all know now where the case stands. And don't think that Nidhi has been sitting quiet. She is a working woman who's been constantly on this case. Nidhi, could you just tell us what is happening as of now so that we can update our viewers about uh,
See,
this case?
now we're still on the bail. The boys applied for bail in the High Court. I mean, 2, 3 times, it's still not come on board, and we've got dates. So now that they've changed to another lawyer, if you see it itself shows, if they need such a big lawyer, if they need a man Shinde who's been in all these cases, I don't have to talk much
Yeah,
about him.
absolutely.
Due
Yeah,
respect, it shows how deep is the crime. So if the parents need such kind of big lawyers, and they feel, when they walk in, what astonishes me, I again repeating, we are a very simple middle class family. What astonishes me is when these parents walk in with big lawyers, and they feel it's a pride moment for them, when they look at me and they walk in, oh God, I walked in with so and so. I'm sorry to say, it's not pride, it's shame if you have to walk in with a
absolutely.
top lawyer where your son is in a criminal case. You're not smirking or smiling at me. You're laughing at your own self, because you know how deep the crime is and what your son has done, but you're living in denial. I understand we are in India where we are too much this, that my son cannot be wrong, and this and that, and every parent wants to shield their child. But they have to understand, if you go to see, it's an open and shut case. We have evidences. The boy has been injured, the boy has lied at every moment. He was there at the party. Everything is against him. If they need such a big lawyer, means it itself shows that he is
Yeah,
the
yeah.
he's the accused. I mean, he's
Yes,
the culprit.
yes.
If the parents have to use such big connections, and it shows.
And not only that, here viewers, I'd also like
And
to tell you.
I also feel, Meena ji, that when the mother comes in the court, and when she looks at me, and she, I mean, what are you fighting for? Are you fighting with me, a mother who's already lost a child? If you have so much for your son, why don't you go to Yash Ahuja's house?
Yeah,
Go to
absolutely.
uh, go to that premise where the party was held and catch that my son came here. And what were you
happened?
doing? Catch those parents.
Exactly.
Catch the father that my son came here. And why the hell, what were you doing, and how drugs were allowed there and children are drinking, and what were you all doing? What is she looking at me and showing me all this? What can I do? You never monitored what your son did. He was in 2 FIR cases which she didn't know about. The aggressive side of the son, he's been taking drugs. I have all the proof of how he's gone to Manali and been drug peddling, and he wanted to come because they are from in Bombay. They are from a place called Wadala, which is not very this compared to Bandra. So her son wanted to he was getting close to our girls to come into that Bandra crowd to earn that
Yeah.
extra money. Now what did my child know, or what did anybody knew about it? Why doesn't the mother look at that aspect,
Yeah.
that boss, my son was consuming drugs? I have done my own research because I have lost my child.
Yes.
I know
Yes.
I am going to do it as a mother, and this is what we had even taught our children. You have no stopping where the kids are getting drugs from. You are not going to the host's house. The host, I still stand by that thing, that host should be caught when a raid is there in a hotel, or any raid, be it drug raid or any raid. Who's caught? The hotel owner, no? He's
Yes.
put behind bars. He's caught कि तुम्हारे होटल में ये illegal चीजें कैसे हो रही थी? How was alcohol? You don't have a liquor license and you're selling alcohol. They don't have a liquor license. They don't have permission, and it is 144. That time it was 144. So how alcohol and drugs were being consumed?
Yes.
So why doesn't she go there? And why? What can I do? Of course, if she's fighting for the son who's wrong, which the whole world knows, am I not going to stand for my child? Am I not going to fight? I don't want other parents to lose, and I want, by seeing all this, I want other children also to learn that not to
Become
get into
aware.
drugs, alcohol. This does not give you anything. It does not give you high. There are a lot of other things in life. Start young. Start, working, getting into other things. So many activities are there. What is drugs going to give you? And the way it's going,
Also,
from
Kieran,
earlier big
Kieran,
parties, small parties, school children are having it.
yes.
Why?
That
Why
is
is it
because
happening outside the
here,
school?
here, Nidhi, I wanted to just intercept you. See, that's because drugs are freely available on the dark web. So this is another area, Kiran, where we have absolutely no control. They can buy drugs through darknet, So that's a very, very dangerous thing. They can buy any sort of drugs. It's not being monitored. Kiran, you can hear me? Kiran is frozen. Nidhi, please continue.
No, so that is what my thing is. Even if under the eye of a parent, the party was not in a, hotel or a restaurant or some bungalow, it was in
Yeah.
a residential area. If under the eyes kids are taking drugs, means what?
Yeah.
The kids have got so much of liberty and so much of, means the parents have not monitored.
Yeah, so Kiran, what I was saying is, on darknet, it's easily available. So that's why these children get access to it. And when they have so much of money, this becomes a sort of a marketing tool for them
I mean,
to,
I
yes,
still, come from that culture that I cannot sit with my father with a glass of wine or glass of drink. I still have that respect that, my father is here, or even my husband, he cannot smoke in front of the father. Like, there's this kind of a respect and, some shame in our eyes. But children are having drugs in the building where children, they are not scared that my father might come up or my mother might come up, because that's the ease they've been given. So parents like us are suffering because parents like them are not monitoring the children, and easily they have gotten I mean, how can you sneak in drugs in a residential area? They've called a drug peddler, they've sneaked in drugs.
Meenaji, I mean, I'd like to. I
Yeah.
mean, I understand when
Yes,
it,
please. Please.
Nidhi's situation is very very unfortunate. As I keep saying, I think, like I said before, there is a need to change the way of policing. The way policing was happening earlier is not going to fly when it comes to where society is at today insofar as drugs are concerned. I mean, even in a place like Bangalore, I have seen uh, private parties which were earlier very, very safe to go to have a drug component to it almost in every party today. I know of people that either went to school with me or college with me who've kind of graduated from alcohol to recreational drugs, and it is not one or two people taking it like it used to be before. It's large tracts of people taking it. It is not gender sensitive. It is not age sensitive anymore. And I think there is a large number of people consuming these drugs. In fact, there are people who actually die very young because of overdose and such.
Yeah.
These things never come out because when you go and do a post-mortem, you probably would conclude that it's a cardiac arrest or one of those.
Yes. Yeah.
But some kind of forensic interventions will tell you that it was probably caused on account of an overdose of some kind of illicit substance. So this is the reality. In fact, I don't know if you remember, Meenaji, but about 6 or 8 months ago, some popular actresses of the film industry here
Yeah.
were
Sandalwood.
arrested in
Yes.
yeah in Sandalwood, were arrested in the NDPS case.
Yeah.
In fact, their argument in court was very simple: that when we were arrested, there was no contraband on our possession. So on what basis would you say that we've actually gone and peddled drugs?
Yeah.
But the allegation of the police was, and the narcotics bureau, which also kind of sided with the police in its investigation, was that these people were allowing peddlers to come into tier one parties that they were going to. They don't
Yes.
have to hold up. So
Yeah.
you're
Exactly.
complicit. You're conspiring, but you're not physically holding on to the contraband,
Exactly. Yeah. This is what
right?
Aryan
And so
also
if
said. Aryan Khan also said.
exactly, and that becomes a defense which goes to the court, and the court says what is found on the person, and there's nothing found on the person. But if you actually interrogate the guy who's been arrested with the contraband, he will tell you that he got access into that party through one of these people.
Yeah.
So she or he is equally guilty of, because they fully well know,
Yeah.
right, that X amount of sales at a party would be a kickback of X amount to these people. And these are not people that are going to remain relevant in movie industry forever. It's very difficult. They need about 4 or 5 lakhs to either run
Yeah.
themselves on a monthly basis.
Yeah.
So where does that money come? The easiest avenue is drugs. And all of this is not just coming from what I hear in courts. It's also in off the record conversations that you have with law enforcement people,
Yes.
right? And this is exactly what happened in the West, and it's what's happening in the East now. India is on the receiving end of it. We were spectators to all of this 20, 30 years ago, right? And unfortunately, it's arrived in our backyard now, and people like Nidhi, who's lost Jahnavi in such neighborhoods, I can understand where she's at, and she's looking for answers. There are no easy answers,
See,
Nidhi.
in fact, Kiran, see what happened exactly to Chanvi also happened to another boy in Mumbai. See, he was also taken to a party like this, and after that, he just died. And they have no reasons. I mean, they're not giving any reasons. Here, see, in Nidhi's case, what is happening is that there is this cabal that is experimenting on synthetic drugs using our middle class children as guinea pigs, and then what happens to them later is not their concern, because see what happens is the police are with them, they will hide all the evidence, And by the time actual investigation starts, there's nothing to even look at, because everything has been wiped out.
It's wiped out, and it's also very difficult. I'll tell you what the challenges are. I know we're talking about what the solution is, but I'll tell you what the challenges are, because if we don't understand the challenges, then it's going to be difficult to arrive at a solution. A lot of raw material that goes into making these MDMA tablets or cocaine or any of that,
Yes.
they don't come as a single bundle, or it doesn't come as a finished product from outside.
Yes.
They all come in isolation. The assembling happens in India, right? So whatever those methods are, that actually starts to happen in India. So even if you were to see some contraband or a raw material that goes into making of a drug,
Yeah.
the courts are not likely to view it with that much seriousness, because it's not a finished product.
Yeah.
Once the product is finished in some unknown place and then it starts to come into our cities, it's too late. And it requires human intelligence, it requires technical intelligence, it requires all kinds of intelligence and a very sophisticated police force to actually start cracking this down, because this is not going to happen with regular policing.
Yeah.
How we go about, and of course you may catch a peddler here and a peddler there, but for you to actually get the trail back to people who are really organized, who are bringing the crores and crores of rupees into this industry, they need to be nailed. You can't nail a peddler who's selling 10 or 15 or 20 grams on the street, because at the end of the day, you're going to get 5,000 or 10,000 rupees from his pocket, which some low-level police officer may very well put into his own pocket and disappear.
See, in this case,
Right?
Kiran, see, what
Yeah.
I don't understand is that, see, when such a party happened at a person's place, Yash, so
Yeah.
the first suspect should be actually the boy, because when he has allowed a drug peddler to come into the party, and he also knows he is actually a witness to everything that's happened that night, he
Yeah.
is the one who should be cross-questioned, and his parents, everybody should be grilled. But that's not happening, and instead they are getting a high-end lawyer, someone who charges so many lakhs per day, to cover up for them.
The most important thing, Meenaji, here is investigation within the first 24 to 48 hours. Right? If wherever this Yash boy lived, and that is where drugs were being peddled, if the place had been sealed on the first information that was provided, that there is an incident of murder that has happened, there was alcohol involved, there was Section 144 in place. If the entire guest list, the CCTV cameras had been had been taken up, and investigation by the IO had been conducted where he picks up everybody as a suspect, puts them through a blood test, because those 24 to 48 hours are very, very critical if you're going to actually say drugs was actually peddled in that party. Today what Niddhi says, I don't distrust her, I know it may have happened, but how are you going to bring it to evidence, how are you going to bring it to court, how are
So
you going to actually
here, Kiran, I'll just interrupt you here. See,
Sure.
what I found rather strange as a journalist is that, see, the same policeman who was there when it happened to Sushant Singh Rajput, he was at Cooper Hospital. The same man who was there when Siddharth died, Shukla died, he was also there when the postmortem was done. The same man was there when Niddhi Kukreja's incident happened. We're talking about Trimukhi. He was one of the policemen.
Was he? I mean, I'm just sorry. I don't know, but I'm just going to ask this question of Niddhi. Was he the jurisdiction officer of some repute? Maybe the ACP or the DCP of the
No,
area.
he was the DCP that time.
Okay. So it's quite
And also you remember, Kiran, he was the man that Riya Chakravarti used to run to every time she was cross-questioned by the NCB. So with so much proof of a policeman who's so corrupt, do you think any of the proof would have been kept? Any evidence would have been kept?
See, the first problem is if you know that someone at the level of the DCP is corrupt, and it's generally acknowledged that he's corrupt even within the department or maybe outside, it's not uncommon for his juniors, his subordinates, to
No, but
also be a little
I'd like
lax.
to interrupt here,
This,
but here,
Yes.
sure, Niddhi.
two of them, like my investigation officer who was changed later on, was very cooperative. I think I have reached where I have is because of, I know they have pressures from top also,
Yeah.
but he was very cooperative. Anytime that I had to call him, or any update, even at 12 in the night, 2 in the night, 3 in the morning, So, people who've done their jobs, I would like to give them credit. And people who have
Yes, yes,
really,
yes. Not all people are bad. No.
yeah, no, no, we had to, earlier we had someone, I don't want to take names, but later on when I had the other investigation officer, he was very
But
cooperative.
again, Nidhi, here what Kiran is saying is that, see, in the first few days, if all that is not preserved, then there's no point.
That's where the folly went, no. And kids are from Khar, Bandra, all high profile, all from good families, you know good money, everything. First case of the year, and some of them, because the parents are also laymen, so they are brainwashed कि आप इसमें फंसेंगे तो ऐसा होगा, आप इसमें ऐसे होएंगे तो ऐसा होगा, all these kind of things. So the parents just want the kids to come out. They don't understand that there's a mother standing here who's lost the child. Tomorrow in my place it could be them also.
Yes.
It could be one of the children also. Instead of getting into this, if they, for me, Meena ji, Kiran ji, it is very simple. Children who have grown up in my house, grown up with my child, who have been with us and we have been with them during everything, suddenly they vanish. If I have not done anything wrong, why would I vanish? Suddenly they don't want to talk to us. Suddenly, four, five of them are out of Mumbai. The parents have sent them away. It proves their guilt.
Or do you
When the
think
whole nation
they
is
were
standing
blackmailed?
with me, I didn't know you, I didn't know Kiran sir. Being strangers today, y'all are supporting me. So how can people who've grown up in my house, children, okay, I can understand. Parents, none of the parents have come forward. So this proves them guilty. None of them, even at the police station, none of them came up to me and said, Ki Nidhi, we are with you, we'll tell the children. No, everybody was bothered about the child. So this shows that there is involvement of the children in the crime. Why suddenly they don't want to come to my house? But when they were in trouble and they didn't want to, like a small thing, like when they come home about 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the night, and they were scared that they'll go so late and their mother will shout, they have always knocked my door. There was never a hesitant to knock my door. Even at 3 in the morning, they've knocked my door and said, Auntie, can I sleep here? Because if I go at 3 in the morning, my mother's going to shout. I said, okay, beta. So how come suddenly the hesitant has come in?
Kiran?
Yeah, no, look, I think offline, Nidhi and I have talked about this, and for those people who are actually watching the show as well, Meena and yourself as well, this was a very unfortunate cocktail of isolated situations. What I mean by that is, on the night Janvi died, you had Section 144 imposed in and around Mumbai. Section 144 meant that no more than five people could get together at any given place, and which meant that the police would take you into custody if you broke that rule. Secondly, there was a COVID situation that was going on in the city, and which meant that an amalgamation of people or getting together of people for New Year's and celebrating New Year's was a complete no no from day one.
Yes.
Now, in these circumstances, you had a bunch of young kids who understandably must have felt extremely claustrophobic for having been locked up for a significant period of time. If you remember right, I think March 2020 is when the lockdown started. So these were young kids, 8 9 months of lockdown, felt that New Year's will get together at a place, celebrate New Year's, and probably go back home. Now, there may have been people who organized this party who got in contraband along with liquor. And, things have gone overboard. The problem that Nidhi faces, and I completely understand that, is where there could have been possibly circumstantial evidence as also physical evidence available to her with eyewitnesses. She's right now left with circumstantial evidence predominantly. The reason for that is none of these kids want to come forward and depose. The reason they don't want to depose is when they come out, one of the first few questions they're going to be asked by any police officer who's investigating this case is, what's your name? Where do you live? Where were you on the night of the 31st? If the kid was to respond and say, I was at this apartment, right? The next question is, who was with you? Right? And I'm sure those kids knew a few other friends of theirs who came in. And they said, okay, individual A, B, C, D, E was with me. We all went together. Did you guys not know that there was 144? Do you know that you have broken the law? Right? And so, en masse, they've gotten together and decided nobody's going to squeal, nobody's going to speak, because if we speak, if one speaks, many are going to get into trouble. Their offenses are far, 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 far more minimal in comparison to what Niddhi is
Undergoing.
enduring today, and what unfortunately Jahnavi had to pay for with her life. So it's one of those.
See here, Kiran, let me just interrupt you. See,
Yeah, sure.
what happened exactly from what Niddhi has conveyed is that early, they made two trips. Okay, Janvi and her friends went there first. Okay, and then they came back and they said that they're going again. And Janvi was very reluctant to go, and they actually forced her to go. In fact, she had to even borrow her mother's slippers, because they were going in such a hurry. Now, I believe that in this time, between this period, they had already planned what to do, and they had made Janvi the target, because she was rather a fragile child, and very soft looking. So they would have thought that she would be easy to overpower. So I feel, I mean, this is again the journalist in me is thinking that they would have planned this in detail, and this would have been telecast on that dark web to make more money, and this is how the whole thing would have been planned. And this is what is happening in rest of Bombay. All these things, whether it is SSR's death, whether it's Disha's death, everything is being telecast on the dark web, where they're making plenty of money. So this is a complete, what you call, there is this, it's a sort of a chain of events that's happening. And unfortunately for Niddhi, Janvi wasn't aware of this. She walked into the lion's den, where she was ripped apart.
Or maybe Meena ji, maybe when she went early, because see, when time passes, every day I get
Yes.
new thoughts. Maybe
Yes.
she knew that they are, and she didn't. She came back. Maybe she knew what they were up to, or maybe
Exactly.
they have planned something. They are scared that she might open up her mouth, because she knew that she was very. They knew that she was very open to me. She never hid anything from me. They knew. So maybe they were scared, or they have planned it. Maybe she tells them that we were having drugs, or maybe she tells the mother, and the mother might tell our parents. Maybe they
Yes,
called her
yes.
back. There was a conspiracy. Maybe
So
they were
you
scared,
think
and she was very
she was
outspoken.
forced to go?
So maybe they wanted that she does not open her mouth, and what happened there, now we don't know.
Yeah.
So
Maybe they
so
were
so
scared. Maybe she was a threat to them, that she might open her mouth, and
Okay.
everybody would know what they're doing over there. Besides
Yes.
drugs, besides what activities, even I don't know.
Exactly. Yeah. What would have?
Because if
so
if
what?
a if a child can have drugs under the nose of the parent, and the parent is unaware, Meena ji, that a murder has happened in the building, the parent doesn't know, an outside resident, while coming down to walk her dog, knows that a girl has died, means what kind of parents are these? Such a big incident has happened, and if they don't know, they are in their own lala land, and these kids have murdered a girl, and they don't know, right under their nose.
And
till
also
that
the
lady
fact that the
till
neighbors
that
were
lady
keeping
would have
quiet.
not come down, they
Yeah, and
wouldn't
none of
even
the
know
neighbors
about
opened
it.
their doors.
And after
You
that,
know,
responsibility. What was their responsibility? To call me up. I was called at 5 o'clock. Means those 2 3 hours they've sanitized. They have removed a lot of evidences
Yes.
from there. Diya Padalkar's father, Mr. Samir Padalkar. I'm saying this on media, even if he's watching it, I don't care. Mr. Samir Padalkar, Mrs. Sejal Padalkar, who has rang my bell at 3 in the morning for a cube of ice for their parties, did not ring my bell when they got a call, when they knew both the children are together, has passed my house. He has to pass my house to go out, has not rang my bell and just gone, means he knew about it that my child is no more. Where is your humanity, sir? You were never hesitant when you rang my bell at 3 o'clock that I have two children, they're sleeping, I have an old mother who's sleeping. No, they were not reluctant that time. They rang my bell at 3 o'clock. Oh, we want ice and we want food and all that. But when my child was no more, there was no moral responsibility to tell me, Niddhi, please come with us. At times, even when his son has fallen down, we have gone to the hospital with him. Means they knew everything. We were the last ones to know because all parents were discussing what to do and save their own child. So you think I'm not going to save my child now? I feel everybody is a culprit over there. Everybody, all I'm talking like a, I'm talking as a mother. But if you think as a common person, it doesn't make sense.
And
I know our
Kiran,
laws are
this can
like
happen
that.
to any girl. It can happen to any boy.
Yeah.
Tomorrow
Yeah.
it could be
No,
their
I can
child
see.
also,
Look,
and
I
it still
think.
can be.
Yeah. No,
It's
look,
round.
I
It
see.
still
Look.
can be because I see the children still partying. I'm shocked to that our parents are still allowing those children to go out. They come at wee hours of the morning. They are partying. I've seen their pictures on Instagram. I don't know. Yash is still partying. I have my sources also. Yash is still partying, still having drugs on his terrace. The parents are not bothered. I don't let my child go out. My younger one is suffering because she has no independence now. I don't let her go out because this has. But after having such a big incident, their children are still living their life. The parents are still living their life. They're still partying, overnight picnics, drugs. I see the children coming at 2, 3 in the morning, and I see how their life is normal because there's no strictness and nobody is monitoring them. They have not understood the seriousness of the situation. They are thinking we are going to come out clean shit. But they don't realize the trials haven't started. You never know when the tables turn.
Yes,
Only
yeah,
And
Kiran.
yeah,
because of
and
us.
no, what I wanted to say, no, what I wanted to say was, no, what I wanted to say was, to what Nidhi is saying, you know, the marger, as we call it, the marger is reconstruction of the crime scene, right? Is when all of what some of the things that have been observed by Nidhi should have been documented in a true sense. And also these individuals who were at the party, I don't know if you know this. I mean, just something that would help you understand the situation. Whenever we do a drink drive, stopover and a pullover when we're coming back, in any city, you have police that will pull you over and ask you to blow into a certain machine. um, if you're actually going to book a case for who's consumed alcohol, somebody who's consumed alcohol, you typically go take them to a hospital and you do a blood test on them to determine the level of alcohol. The meter would have recorded what it would have recorded, but to make a case of it, you're required to ensure that a blood test is done on people. Now, insofar as this case is concerned, when we're talking about things like narcotics and substance abuse at the party, the only way this is actually going to see some credible outcome, at least from a drug angle. Forget about the accused who's accused of murder. I mean, he's going to go through the trial, the circumstantial evidence, and so on and so forth. So is Dia. These are two people. But everything else, and I know it may not be a popular thing to say, I think we've lost time because it should have happened. It's too late now. Even if somebody was to make an allegation saying drugs were at that party, it's no more than an allegation because there is no evidence by way of either blood reports or seizures placed before the court to say that this is what we found at the premises. And like Nidhi said,
This is
3 to 4 hours.
what the criminals know also.
Absolutely, you're right. You're right. And so, which is one of the reasons why this battle is not happening at a very peddler level. the people who are actually financing these kind of things are aware. So, to the point that you said, righteous officers being targeted, right? When an officer of repute or when an officer of competence decides to take on these people, he's taking on crores of rupees of business,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
right? And what's the easiest thing to do? It's to find things like Savir Wankade found out. It's to find out things about him that are absolutely not relevant to his policing, but using the media to taint him in various ways. Likewise, what else do you do with an officer that lost her life in Punjab? You knock them down. So, these are realities, right? And we could get very emotional about it, but I think it's more important to look at how do you address the issue. Are you going to solve it? I'm not so sure. But are you going to be able to minimize it? I think the courts are being more and more firm in not granting bail to NDPS accused who get picked up. Secondly, in a normal crime, you're looking at about 90 days when the charge sheet is filed, or there is an expectation from the court, unless you seek special permission to. But in NDPS case, you get 180 days. So if somebody is, and then there is also what determines commercial quantity. Earlier, if I had 3 grams on me or 2.5 grams on me, I would be treated as a consumer, right? But if I'm with a friend, bunch of 6 friends, and each of us are holding on to 5 or 6 or 7 grams, it's the cumulative seizure which will then ensure that I'm going to police custody and subsequently judicial custody, because I'm no longer a consumer. I can also be treated as a peddler. So there is all of this that's happening with the law, but I think the gap is significant because I think the police are facing challenges that they have not anticipated. And at the low rung, there are officers who find it easy to take 5-10,000 rupees and let go of somebody who's peddling drugs. And yes, let's not hide away from the fact that there is a system that's corrupt. It wasn't corrupt yesterday; it's been corrupt for a long time, right? Even if you look at Mumbai, where Niddhi lives, Sachin Waze, right? He's accused of far greater things. The Home Minister was supposedly on the take, allegedly on the take, 100 crores a month, right?
But,
How are you going to?
Kieran, when you
Yeah,
talk like this, the whole thing is a circle. Yeah,
it has
it's
to
a
be.
circle. Yeah, because see,
No, I
these
don't.
are all people from the same. The circle forms a whole. Whether
And
it's a
Meena ji, you have
peddler,
to be.
whether it's the peddler, or whether it's the Dexys, or whether it's these boys who are marketing it. It's all one circle.
Meena ji, Meena ji, it's also important for us to maintain some balance, and it's important for society, right? Now, by virtue of being a lawyer, if I was to say these things to you, it's almost as if we're helpless. But
Yeah,
you've got to maintain your optimism, because that's how societies will change and that's how societies will improve. We can't be cynical. I understand, somebody like Nidhi being extremely frustrated with the system, because she's enduring it. She's going through it every day. I mean, she sees us senior counsel present in court. She sees the mother of the accused trying to do a thumbs down on her. And these are painful in an individual capacity insofar as Nidhi is concerned, and rightly so. But that said, there is still a system that has to be rectified. And it can't all be dismal. You have to keep pressure up. You have to get people. I mean, there are today, if you bump off a peddler, if police action kills a peddler, right, there are so many questions the policeman needs to answer. It's not easy being a policeman. Even a righteous policeman who goes out there to do the right thing, if a dagger or a pistol is pulled out and he decides to use his service weapon, right? There are so many things he needs to answer once he's back in his shed, in his police shed. So this is not easy. And even a country, I'm not saying this is justification, but even a country like America, with all its intelligence and all the technology and all the resources available to it, struggled with the Mexican cartels and the Colombian cartels for a very, very long time.
Now, Kiran, can I
So,
ask you a question?
yeah,
A candid
sure.
question. Is that, see, as a lawyer in the Karnataka High Court, Have you ever dealt with this sort of drug case or anything related to this? And has it
Yes, we
ever
have.
been proved?
Oh, yes, it has been proved. It has been proved. But, when you're talking about the Karnataka High Court, you're talking about at the appeal stage. But when we're talking about the trial courts, right? If you get a tight charge sheet, Meenaji, and you get a good seizure, there are special courts for NDPS Act, right? And these courts, once they establish that once the forensic laboratory comes back and says what has been seized is cocaine, what has been seized is MDMA tablets, what has been seized is so on and so forth. Once those come back, and there's good because NDPS is being taken seriously, I can tell you that. I understand where Nidhi's at, where she says it's looking very large. It is very large, and that's one of the reasons why I know that over the last year and a half. Is it where we want it to be? The answer is no. Absolutely not. But have the police, because if they hadn't checked it, we'd be in a far worse place than we can even imagine. We see, I mean, because I do go to the trial courts quite often, I do see a lot of people being produced for NDPS offenses, which wasn't the case before. You'd find the odd, you'd find somebody being presented for theft and so on. But now you do actually find a whole lot of people being presented before. And I think what you see happening in Bollywood, what you see happening in Sandalwood, there was also a case in Hyderabad not so long ago. There was a case in Chennai not so long ago. These are, these are important because big names come out. Now I understand that people would like to know if they've been convicted, if they've been put behind bars. We've made a start. I think we have to be positive. I think it's important
Another
that
question, Kiran.
yeah,
Another
sure.
question is that suppose since now Satish Manishinde has entered the fray, and now I think with him coming into the court, they are going to get a bail for this guy Sri. Now, if this happens, how? I mean, what is Nidhi's position? What does Nidhi do?
Look, I think we've got to be very, very clear about one thing, and I've said this privately to Nidhi, in my conversations with her. Bail is not, discharge of the accused. Bail is just your right. It's your liberty. Now, understand that he has been in custody since 1st January 2021. So we're talking about almost 16 months of custody, right? So he's been in custody. He will be entitled to bail because the investigation is complete from the police point of view. A charge sheet would have been filed. If there's any supplementary charge sheets that need to be filed because of new information coming to light in due course, that will get done. So, there will be certain conditions set forth by the court. I'm not going to preempt whether the court's going to grant him bail or otherwise. But, we still work on the premises that you're innocent unless proven guilty. So there was a prima facie case against Shri, and that's what's kept him in custody for as long as he's been. Let us also be, a little fair to Mr. Manishinde. He's a very well-known lawyer, but not every case that he argues he wins. Right? I mean, yes, the reputation is there. He's a good lawyer. He's, someone who's made a mark in the industry. And I wouldn't look as a mother. I can understand Nidhi's, position in going and speaking to him. But the lawyer's job is to do the right thing by his client. Now, I think the immaturity shown by the mother of the accused here is something that I wouldn't want to speak of because I don't think she understands the pain that Janvi's mother is going through. So I wouldn't really want to comment on it. I think it's extremely immature, and I think it's extremely distasteful for her to do if she's doing what she's doing. I think it's disgusting, outright disgusting as well.
And
The
I'm
least
not
you can
here
do.
for revenge. They don't understand. I'm not here for revenge.
And even if you are, Nidhi, even if you are, I think at the end of the day, you don't need to justify why you're doing this, right? You've lost your child and you're doing it for reasons best known to you, and whatever those reasons are, so be it. But my point is that the boy at some point will be, should be granted bail. But the trial has not commenced. Charges will be framed. And once charges are framed, right, you're going to go through a process of trial. And there's a lot that hinges on circumstantial evidence. If that hadn't been the case, right, you would not have found Shree's bail being rejected as it has been in the past. I've also read the observations made by the learned judge. There's good observations there. And so for them to build a case and counter all of that is going to be challenging at the trial court, right? I'm sure Niddhi is going to put her every effort to ensure that all the material that the police need is going to be presented before the trial court. She will go through motions of frustration with the court, the adjournments, and so on and so forth. That's unfortunately where our justice system is. But it's better, and I speak to her about it privately because I want her to prepare herself mentally.
Yes.
This is not going to be easy.
It's very kind of you, Kieran.
No, I
Really
think it's not going to be. No, I think that's the least we can. All of us can do. Meeraji, you're doing the best you can, and I think it's. I don't think any thanks are needed for this because she's gone through a difficult one. But what I would like to say is this. By no means is this boy, or for that matter, the girl, acquitted. There is no need to celebrate with sweets if they come out of jail, even if they want you to believe that.
Yeah.
Even if the mother wants to go to town and celebrate his release from jail, he's only coming out on bail. And had there not been a strong case against him, he would not have been squatting in jail for the last 16 months. So those are the positives that I in a difficult circumstance.
But then, Kieran, I know this is
Yeah.
sort of may irritate you, but a lot of these people who are on bail, people like Riya Chakravarti and all of them, are never called back at all.
Yes, they're not. Because if you remember, Lalu Prasad Yadav took him 19 years before we actually put him in jail. It was an open and shut case the day they actually booked the FIR. The guy, this was a very different kind of an offense. It was an economic offense as a head of state. He had moved money from the state's treasury into his personal account.
Yes.
Right? And he's been struggling for the last 5 to 6 years. He's in and out of jail. He's going into hospital. He's doing all kinds of things. And we're talking about a powerful leader from Bihar.
Yeah.
He was also the railway minister of India. So I would like to say this, Riya Chakrabarti can do what she wants. If there is a strong case against her insofar as the charge sheet is concerned, if the witnesses are managed. In Niddhi's case, I don't think there are that many witnesses. Everything hinges on circumstantial evidence. And if a good job is done of it, I have we have Chautala in jail today. So we have to be optimistic. We have to be hopeful. We have to be positive. And it's very easy to get distracted by negative news. We are a very big country, and the police to citizen ratio is abysmal. And despite all of this, you have to stay positive. You have to look at the material before the court, and if there's anything that we need to do. And I think Niddhi is doing the right thing by talking to people and ensuring that she's educating herself on how to go about this whole process. It's not easy for her because as we
just
saw.
little point here. Little point.
Sure.
Kieran. See, when I don't know whether you're aware, because I'm not sure, when you watch TV personalities. When Siddharth Shukla died, he was a TV personality. He was in Big Boss. He was in Big Boss.
The Big Boss guy.
He won the Big Boss. Yeah. So when he died, nothing was revealed. As in no photographs. He was taken to Kupa Hospital. Trimuke was there. After that, even when he was brought to cremate, even his face or his body was not shown. And everybody who was present at the funeral were told to keep their, mobiles, inside, not to take any photos or videos. So what I'm trying to tell you is that, unlike SSR case, this time they managed to manipulate the whole thing so that nobody would know exactly what happened to Siddharth Shukla. Similarly, in the case of Niddhi Kukreja, see what happened was they bought that much time. When Niddhi says, why didn't they let me know, why didn't they do it to me? That was the time when these people were working to cover up all these evidences. So this is a pattern. It's not a single thing. It can happen to anybody in the country. And that's what we are scared of.
And Meena ji, this is what something we've got to be very careful about. If you're talking about Siddharth Shukla, I don't know if a medical legal case was booked and an unnatural death was
What they said
booked when
was
he died.
it was a cardiac arrest, but there was
Yeah.
no post-mortem report
Foul.
from the Cooper hospital.
So that's where things become extremely difficult, because you know the kith and kin of the deceased can invoke privacy and ensure that nothing is documented if indeed somebody has actually not been declared dead under suspicious circumstances. So it's very, very important that if when someone dies, it's, at the outset, you're going to look at it as a medical legal case or somebody who's died under suspicious circumstances. So there has to be some form of, investigation. If it is concluded at that very stage that he died of a cardiac arrest and there was no foul play, then the relatives of the deceased, as I said earlier, can say that it is our right to privacy, that we don't want photographs or any information material of the deceased to be placed before public. And so that's a very, that's a difficult one. But I'd like to say this as well, as we're talking about all of this, that there were 58 wound marks on Sunanda Pushkar.
Yes. Yes.
She died in a seven-star hotel
Yeah.
in Delhi.
Hotel.
And her body was moved from, and all of this is documented, her body
Yeah.
was moved from one room to another,
Yeah.
right? Her puncture marks are unexplained even to this day, right?
And
And
also
so,
there was earlier there was CCTV footage showing two men had come into her room, as if
yeah,
they
so
had come for home delivery, food delivery, and they were the assassins.
there's so much there which, rightly or wrongly, people would want to
Why
know.
I'm saying this is because, again, connecting it to Nidhi, is that had Nidhi or her husband known this earlier, being sort of intelligent, Nidhi would have been able to piece these things together had she seen the scene, firsthand. It would
Yep,
have been
I'm sure.
easier for her. Now she's just trying to, put things together. It's so difficult for her to even
Meena,
imagine what would have happened. Yeah, Nidhi.
Meena ji, again, like now when Kiranji was just saying about Sunanda ji, I'm just, like when we are talking about Janvi, we are also forgetting the fact and not highlighting that there was 48
Yes,
injuries on
yes,
her body, which
yes.
is not a joke. It
Yeah,
was not just like somebody pushed her or it was a simple,
yeah.
but there were 48
Very professionally done.
injuries.
Yes,
Yes, so who's going to give me the answer for the 48 injuries? 48 injuries means the opposite person, whoever was there,
inflicted it. Yeah,
means it was a
I think
continuous half an hour. Even if you take half a minute an injury, 48 into half a minute also becomes almost 24 minutes.
yes.
So there was some anger or something in that person
Frenzy.
which he vented out on her. Now, what was it that he vented out on my child and he did not vent it out on Dia, or he did not vent it out on the other children there? Because Dia was also present, means these two have done it together on my child. 48 injuries is not a joke. So we cannot forget the fact, even when we are fighting, even when we come to the trials, we cannot forget the 48 injuries, because I have seen my child. Because when we went there, it was like accident ho gaya hai. Sameer Padalkar calls up my husband and says, there's an accident. You very well knew it was a murder. You could not say that. You didn't have that guts to say that. You're saying it's an accident. And you're more bothered about the lip injury on your child's day. From the beginning of this, there was a lie. The father has lied, saying that the daughter has fallen. We are repeating this thing that fallen in the bathroom, means you are only covering your child up. So how will the child speak the truth? If parents are going to start covering up the child when you knew the child was at the party and it has happened, so why are you giving false things to the hospital? None of them could go to my child over there who was lying alone in a government hospital, when you know what happens in government hospitals. This is something, Meena ji, I need answers for. You cannot say, I don't remember. And, you can just get out of it, or those other 8, 10 children just, don't face me, and, they just run away. It's not done. And people, when they
Also,
come up to me and tell me, oh, Nidhi, very sad what happened. No, it's not sad. It is wrong.
see here also, what I want to tell you, Kiran, I know Kiran, see, you're talking as a lawyer, and it's very clinical for you that you need evidence and you need all these things for something to be proved. But somewhere, Kiran, I think, okay, correct me if I'm wrong, that, the face of law, has cut itself completely from what's happening in society, by using all these techniques and all, by saying that, see, we will only go by circumstantial evidence, blah, 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 blah. Okay. They are not looking any further, Kiran, any further. And that makes it very, very difficult for people like us to take.
No,
It's
it's
like,
high time
they
we
are
pull up
they
our
are
socks.
absolutely, I'm not saying, don't you, of course, don't be so emotional, but have something, have some sort of sense, at least make some sort of right decision. When you know that there's a lawyer who's been only citing the corrupt, who he's standing for, and then you have another lawyer standing with a mother who's been suffering from 1.5 years. At least there's some sort of this thing can be used here. I don't understand. I'm here. I'm really foxed, Kiran, about the way law
Look,
works in India.
No, it's
I
it's
think
high time, Meena, we pull up our socks. Our system is just going down the drains. Victim is actually a victim. It's actually a victim. They don't understand the emotions we are going through, and we're still fighting. It's very easy to say, "Oh, you're a strong woman," but what choice do I have? What choice do I have? Everybody's life is back to normal, but mine is not. I'm just the front face. I have a younger child, I have a husband, I have a mother who I have to look after. She was attached to the whole family, so it's affected everybody. We cannot get back to normal, I don't think, anytime. And by these court cases, going by the years, you're making us relive the moment. If from this show, if I can reach out to any minister or even the prime minister, I'm requesting, high time, pull up your socks, get our judicial system more stronger, so that the other people, we set an example for other people. If we are so lenient, they get the liberty. That's how more drugs are happening, more murders are happening, more rapes are happening, because they're getting that liberty.
Yes, Kiran.
I mean, look, I don't know. I don't know um, what's going to help Nidhi because she's in a tough place, and uh, I don't think I have anything to say to her that's going to make her feel any different.
I'll just tell you something. Away from this, Kiran.
Yeah.
See, when the prime minister was speaking to ministers, the chief ministers of states, about COVID. See, everybody knows that a leader is speaking, so everybody, pays attention. Did you watch the way Arvind Kejriwal behaved? You know, he pulled up his arms and he was showing his anger or his, what do you say, his discontent or whatever, that he wasn't bothered about what prime minister was speaking. Okay. Now, how I'm connecting it to this is, Kiran, is the fact that Kejriwal doesn't bother, care two hoots what the prime minister of the country is doing, because he has become so emboldened by these riots, by the farmers' agitation, by Punjab's victory. The more these things are happening, the more stronger these people are getting. And everybody knows what's happening in Delhi. He's the worst chief minister anybody has ever had. And they are growing stronger because, Kiran, nobody's stopping them. Nobody's questioning them. Our legal system needs a change. It's obvious. You can't say that we'll keep delaying cases, but we'll decide what the country has to do, and tell our leaders what to do. Our courts are entering, deciding what the government should do. These are. I find it very funny. Instead, why not concentrate on handling these cases? It takes 1.5 years for Niddhi to get justice. Is it so difficult a case? I just tried Kiran. I got disconnected.
Sorry,
Yes.
I
Yeah,
lost
it's
you
okay.
there
It's
for a
okay.
couple of
Yeah.
minutes. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So Kiran, what I'm saying is does it take 1.5 years for a mother to get justice? You see, again, what I'm saying is the courts interfere in everything. Whatever the country should do, whether it's a riot or whatever. But our cases are getting delayed. Does the mother have to wait 1.5 years to get justice? Does Sushant
look,
need
Meena,
2.5 years to get justice?
well, the short answer is no, but I'll also have to be mindful of the realities of where we're at, because we see the number of cases that get admitted to court every day, both on the criminal side as also on the civil side. You also look at the resources that are available before the court, the amount of work that goes into. I'm not saying we're, making excuses here, but I'm saying the amount of the work that goes into administering justice is just significantly higher than what people would even appreciate. I can understand from Nidhi's point of view that she'd like to see closure and move on in her life, because her loss is, something that we can't even pretend to know. So we get that, and I get that. But more importantly, insofar as Nidhi's case is concerned, or Janvi's case is concerned, we can, I don't know if comfort is the right word, but I think we can, for starters, look at the fact that the accused has been apprehended. He's behind bars, and he's behind bars for the last 16 months. I'm not saying that's a good start, but that's a fair start, right? Now, yes, the next step is for the trial to happen. And as a mother, she's going to go through some amount of difficulty in enduring the trial, because a lot of things are going to be dissected. A lot of information that gets bandied about in court is not going to be palatable to her. But nevertheless, she has to find the strength within her to go through that process and hopefully ensure that there is conviction, because she's convinced that this has happened. I'm not going to sit here or conduct a trial on a discussion, because that's not fair to her. But she's convinced that the two individuals who were arrested, Dia and Shri, have killed her daughter. And she's got a good reason to believe that. She also is absolutely unhappy that many people were let to get away. And I go back to what I always said, in fact, even on the previous show that we had, Meenaji, where all of this could have actually come to the fore only in the first 24 to 48 hours. Every hour after that, you don't have real evidence to collect. You don't know of drug. Today, you and I are talking about drugs at the party. We may know that there were drugs at the party, but can we prove that there were drugs at the party? Right? And they're two different things from the point of view of justice. And not just in India, but in world over, everywhere. We work on the basis of the evidence before us. And as much as we know that individual A, B, C, D, E may have been peddling drugs at that party, the fact that they were not pulled up, there was no seizure made, there were no forensics done on people who were at the party, either by way of blood tests or otherwise. There was no forensics done on Shri or Dia to see if they consumed any liquor or any drugs. So all of this are gaps, right? And those gaps should have been addressed in the first 24 to 48 hours, which is what I always maintain in a criminal trial. But that aside, I think there's enough material before the court. And I repeat, if there wasn't that kind of material, the guy would not have been in custody for as long as he has been. Let's take some comfort from that fact, and let's hope and pray that the trial goes in the right direction and justice is meted, because anything less would not be acceptable to anybody who's endured this, and certainly not the family of Janvi. So I understand Nidhi's position, and I understand her frustrations, but I also equally am a lawyer who looks at what happens every day in court. And so I'm just trying to sensitize her to those, so that she's prepared, because we this is not going to change overnight. Things don't change in this country overnight. We are way too big. We're too, we're at least fortunate that we have a justice system. If we go into rural areas in India, it's even to this day meted out in very different ways. And so we've got to prepare the infrastructure, the judicial infrastructure. There's a long way to go, right? None of this is good enough for a mother who's lost her child. And so I'm not even going to preach to her. But I think we've got to remain optimistic. I think she's done very, very well. I know she may get unhappy every time somebody says you're strong, but what option does she have? What choice does she? She either walks away from this and stays bitter all her life, or she fights hard like she's been fighting, and I see her there. It's what she's chosen to do, and
The
it's
funny thing,
admirable.
Kiran, the funny thing, Kiran, and
Yeah.
Niddhi, is that none of the mainstream media are talking about this case. You know. And not only this case, so many other cases as well. See, they've forgotten it. This is what makes us sad, because this has been taken as just a normal incident. When it is such a gruesome. Just now she said 48 wounds. It's not a normal murder, and yet people have just forgotten it and gone ahead. Of course, we all know that mainstream media does only what they are paid for. Still, look at the way they discuss things that are only important, which is the Ukraine war. How is the Ukraine war concern us at all? All the channels running only Ukraine or are talking about Azan or this thing. Can't we talk about people who are suffering in India? I mean, nothing is important for us. Our values have gone, our morals have gone. We don't care what happens to our neighbor. And this is again, Kiran, I'm not talking to you as a lawyer. I'm just talking to you as a human being. We've lost our values.
Look, I think we all have good enough reason to vent, and there's enough material to vent, in our everyday lives, starting with, and I understand that, but the show has to go on,
No, I'm not talking
and
about venting. No, Kiran, I'm not talking about venting. I'm talking about keeping the case live
alive.
till
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
justice
Yeah,
is meted out. I'm not talking about venting. I'm not the kind who will vent out. But every
no, but
time
I'm
I
telling you,
see
Meena,
yeah,
and Meena,
every
Meena,
time
I'll
I
say
see
this. I'll
Nidhi's
say,
face or I get a message from her, I'm
no,
taken back to the incident where this
no,
girl
we
was,
sh- no,
and I
and we
can't
should
bear.
vent, Meena.
It could have been my daughter.
We-
It could have been,
Meena,
you know.
Meena, we should vent. I think we should vent because it's too easy for us to be disconnected from somebody else's pain.
Yeah,
I think so. I think look. I can be detached from what has happened and just look at it in a very unempathetic way. We're going to become that kind of a society,
yes, yes,
right? To the extent possible and to the extent real, I think I should feel the pain that Nidhi is feeling because like you rightly said just now, it could be someone in my family that's
yeah,
really dear and near to me,
absolutely,
right? And it's a circle of life. Who knows
yeah,
what we're going to encounter when? So I understand that. But at the end of the day, as a society, we've gone from 35 crore people to 1.3 billion in a hurry in about 60 years. We haven't readied ourselves for the challenges that lie before us. And those are everyday issues. I see that in court. I mean, I see far more terrible scenes in court. I see a poor mother who comes from the districts with no money to pay for her accused son's bail. She brings her lunch from tier 2, tier 3 cities. She catches a night bus to be there in court in the morning, only to pay her lawyer, who may be competent, may not be competent, 3 or 4,000 rupees. She's not even making that money in 2 months, but she has to be in court and she has to pay the lawyer to file an application for her son who's accused, who may be accused number 8, 9, 10. So these are difficult ones. These are very, very difficult ones, right? And these people are not even going to be able to afford a lawyer. Legal services takes care of them, and who's going to speak of the competence of some of those people? So these are real issues that we encounter. It's unfortunate, but we can't look away from it. We can't wish them away. I think it's got to take concerted effort, and you know, unfortunately, the likes of Janvi paid for their with their life, um, and I hope and pray that we don't have too many of those instances. every death is a significant loss to somebody. Every loss of life at that age, especially she was 19, she had, so much to look forward to. So these are difficult ones, and I just hope and pray that the course that she's actually taken is the right one. I mean, all help is available to her, and I just hope and pray that the outcome that she's looking for is obviously not revenge, as she repeatedly tells me, even in private conversations. She says, I want justice to be done, I don't want revenge. Right? And I think justice should be meted out. I mean, let's hope that that happens. And I know the trial will commence fairly soon. Maybe typically from the time of offense to when the charges are framed, it's about 2 years, 2.5 years. I think we're going to get there in some time, COVID notwithstanding. So let's hope that things go right, and we get the outcome that we should.
Yeah, Nidhi,
But
would you like to?
in the interim, I would also like to say, I mean, the officers that have been given credit by Nidhi in this case, is also in the NDPS case and other cases, like Mr. Wankade, and the lady that lost her life, Mrs. Shori in Punjab. You know, they are ones that should actually capture front news, front page reports, because they're doing a good job under very testing circumstances. All they need is for a superior to say go slow on a case, and they will have no choice but to go slow.
Absolutely.
And despite that, if they're actually pushing out difficult outcomes, I think they are people who deserve all the credit. But then again, how do you give them credit without bringing them to the mainstream? When you bring them to the mainstream, there are people willing to, waiting to pull them down. So it's a double-edged sword. I just think we've got to keep at it, and hopefully we'll get better as every day goes by.
Yeah. Nidhi, would you like to close, say something at the end of this session
No, I think
to
I
our
think
viewers?
I've said enough. Yeah, I said I've said enough. We've spoken enough. You know, there are a lot of things I go through every day. There are a lot of people I know. A lot of people who are connected also. Who have reached out. They come up to tell me, and they come up to me and tell me, Nidhi, if you need anything, let us know. If you need anything, are you have the connection, then I need you at this time. I need powerful people, I need connections. So why don't you all come on your own and say, come Nidhi, I'm going to take you to the home minister, or I'm going to take you to the chief minister, or I'm going to take you to the prime minister. A mother who has lost a child needs help. By just talking and just coming and consoling me and telling me, oh, you need anything, I need. If you have the connect with the chief minister, if you have the connect with the prime minister, help me out. And I'm not the first, and I know there are many mothers like me, but please, come forward and help me. Don't ask, and make me go through that. I think every person who knows someone should come forward and say, yes, she needs me. I'm going to take her and set that example. Okay, I will take you to the so and so minister. I know him well. This will help you in the case. Why that approach is not there? For me, Meenaji, Kiranji, it's a struggle every day, because to feel, to feel the mother. When I think of Janvi with her moments, I can never see her again. I can never touch her. I can never hug her. It's not easy. And it just was over in a jiffy. Like, I can't imagine. When I see her photographs, I see things around that I can't see her again, and I'm never going to have those conversations we had. So I go through that every single moment, even if I'm at work, even if I'm keeping myself busy. But they keep on, because moments keep on, like lunchtime, when I call them at home and ask if they've eaten, or have they come back from school or college. So these things are going to be every moment. It's not going to be normal for us again. All I would like to say, that our system has to hurry up with all the victims who are
Yes,
suffering. We are,
absolutely.
for 4 5 years, you are punishing us. You are punishing us by, we need a closure too. We need a closure too.
Here, Kieran, I'd just like to ask
Yeah.
you, what are these fast track courts for?
Fast track courts are typically set up for certain offenses, right? Um, or certain groups of people where there is now I know that a lot of things can come under fast track, but then again, you don't want fast track to be fast track and then become slow track, right? So fast track courts, um, the judicial system from time to time identifies areas where speedy justice needs to be meted out, and so designated courts are set up to hear those matters. Like for instance, I'll give you, there is one court that has been set up to only look at offenses committed by public servants. And when I say public servants, we're talking about MLAs and MPs.
Yeah, yeah.
There's a standalone court set up for them. So no other matters heard. So any offense against an MLA or an MP is heard before that court with an intent that there is speedy justice. Likewise, when you're looking at certain crimes against women and children, fast track courts have been set up to ensure that victims are brought to book as quickly as possible once investigation is complete. Now,
And
generally,
usually, what is the period that it happens?
you're looking at about 2 to 3 years.
Oh, still.
Yeah, because the investigation is still 90 days. And sometimes police come before the court and say that they need further time, and the courts are willing to grant them time because there may be aspects of the case which is still not concluded. The accused may be absconding, he may be in a different district, so many other factors.
So you think Janvi's case can come in this category?
Well, not in the normal course, because it's a murder, right? It's a murder.
It's a violence against a woman.
It is, but it would be treated as regular murder. The circumstances and so on. I mean, unless some judge at a very senior level, at the High Court level, or at this, the CJ himself, takes a view that this has to be put through a fast track court, right? Those are saving powers of the court. In the normal course, it will still have to go through the same, process. But fast track courts are there for very specific purposes, and they're dealt with accordingly.
Thank you, Kieran, for that session. I know we've been
Thank you. Thank you, Meena
asking
ji.
you
And
so many
listen,
things. Yeah, and
no,
thank you,
I
Niddhi,
just
for
hope,
coming.
I just
know,
hope
see,
it's
for,
helpful.
yeah. In fact, Niddhi has joined us straight from work. I mean, I requested her to come to this session because when Kieran is there, it becomes easier to ask questions. And thank you, Niddhi, for joining us. And I wish, with all my heart, that we do get some sort of movement in this case, some justice be about it. On that note, I'd like to close the session. Thank you, Niddhi, and thank you, Kieran.
Welcome.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Meena ji.
Kiran,
Thank
sir,
you,
so
thanks,
much
Nidhi.
for all your efforts. I really thank you, for always being there, and giving that
Please don't,
guidance.
please don't.
You are
Even
really thank you, Kiran.
if
Yes.
it's let's work on this, and let's hope that you get
We are
your
with you,
policeman.
Nidhi. Yeah, we are with you. Because see,
We'll
we
get-
cannot forget what has happened. And till you get justice, we will also not be quiet.
And absolutely, Meenaji, I'm very confident, I'm very confident that I will be talking about justice again very soon on this channel again, you know, sharing with all of us on the forum that yes, we did go through our ups and downs, but finally we got justice for her. That will be my tribute to my
Absolutely.
daughter, and that will be my biggest,
And
and
perhaps
I'm very confident,
meet
I'm
on
very
that day.
confident, yes. I'm very confident that here again I'll be sitting and we will be talking about the journey we went through. And we
And
will definitely
we
get
will
a
all
justice.
meet as well.
Thank
Because
you.
Kiran is
Thank you.
also a very good friend, a very kind soul, who wears a coat, but he's got a very soft, soft and kind heart. Thank you, both
Thank
of
you,
you.
thanks, Meena ji. Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night. Good night.
Good night.